Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me. My name is Darylurbanski, your host as always. And today we're joined by Mark Wade. Mark is Chief Retirement Officer at Retirement Suite and a best-selling author with 48 years of experience helping financially successful families retire with confidence. He specializes in finding the hidden gaps often remaining inside even well-built retirement plans, especially around taxes, market risk, income, and legacy transfer. Through Retirement Suite, he leads a 40-person fiduciary team offering a virtual family office experience backed by institutional partners including Synergy Asset Management and Charles Schwab. His mission is simple: give families clarity, a second opinion, and a practical roadmap for more income, fewer taxes, and lasting family protection. I've asked him to join us here today to share his story and insights into making sure your golden years are truly golden. So, Mark, thanks so much for joining us, my friend. How you doing?
Hey, Daryl, great to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, I love that. And I appreciate your story. I appreciate what you're about. Anybody that can keep some money in my pocket and prevent it from going to the corrupt politicians is a hero in my books. How did you even get into this, though? Is this like a family business? Did your parents do this and you're just carrying the torch?
You know what? I wish that were the case, actually. I started off in college as a pre-med major, and about a year and a half into my studies, I came across this course called Economics 101, and I fell in love with economics. Had an incredible professor who just also happened to be chairman of the department at that time. And she was shocked when I said I wanted to switch from pre-med to economics. And she said, "Are you sure about that?" I said, "Yeah, absolutely. I want to help people in the financial world."
That's awesome. That's really
Yeah,
powerful.
thanks.
So is that you just changed your degree and then I mean you just stayed that path. You've been doing it, I think you said for 48 years?
Daryl, it's crazy. I look back at at my career. This is the 48th year of doing the only thing I've ever done. Pretty soon it'll be 49 years. I started off on the corporate side of the financial services industry and just segued over to the independent side. Now we have a couple of operating companies in investment management and financial planning and insurance brokerage, and it's just been a phenomenal career. I'm so blessed.
Yeah. I mean, not everybody really figures out their ikigai, so to speak, at such a young age that they can hold fast to that. Especially this day and age with millennials. I think they're poised to have like a new career every 3 to 5 years, which is just insane if you think about it. So I guess how has things changed? How have things changed and evolved? Is it still the same song today as it was when you were first getting started? Is it like save 10% of your income and write off your tax, which you can't like how has it changed and evolved over the years?
Daryl, is anything the same any longer? Come on. I mean, it's the rate of change, the speed of which things evolve nowadays is just absolutely mind-boggling. So things have changed a lot. I mean, I'll tell you, they have become significantly more complicated. There are so many more variables now. I mean, everything is a multivariate equation nowadays, right? Everything has so many different forces working upon it, and not the least of which are what the government does with tax laws and so on and so forth. And now that it's a global economy, it's not a state economy or a province economy or a US or a Canadian economy. It's nothing like it's a global economy. Everything affects everything. And with the advent of digital assets, good
Mm,
Lord, man,
mm.
it's a full-time job to stay on top of these things, which is why a team is so critical because no one advisor, no one has all of the answers to all the questions that pop up on a daily basis nowadays. It's
Mm.
absolutely paramount to have a network of high quality, seasoned professionals you can go to for answers to different types of questions. And and we're real fortunate in that regard.
And so in your career, what were some of the biggest challenges that you've had to deal with in this field, in this industry, and helping people?
Well, that is a loaded question, my friend. How much time do we have
Yeah.
today? It's great. Okay, so look, let's start with the obvious thing. You can really only help people who want to be helped. People have to want to better their situation. They
Mhm.
have to be open-minded. They have to be willing to change because we can provide the most high-tech, high-speed, low-drag solutions to various different problems. But if you're not dealing with a willing person who is willing to open their mind and be open to change to improve their family situation, not just for themselves today, but for their entire family in the future. So that's number one. And I don't say this to look down upon certain types of investors or certain type of people who might be looking for answers. But let's face it, all the information in the world is available on the internet today,
Mhm.
pretty much, right? And it's available new every day because things that's the rate of change, right? What was it, Moore's law? The rate of change of the rate of evolution of computer chips used to
Mhm.
be 18 months, and how fast is it now? I
Yeah, it's
mean, it looks like they're coming out with almost a new chip every month
yeah,
nowadays.
it's
So so it's no different in our industry. You really need to be chatting with somebody who is motivated to change. So so the DIYers, right? The do-it-yourselfers, for the most part, that person's gonna be a do-it-yourselfer unless you can really show them how you can add true and meaningful value to their
Mhm.
bottom line, which is what we do every day. But they're a hard bunch to crack sometimes
Mhm.
because they're just looking for the information. They're not really looking for help. And
Mhm.
so we kind of tell those individuals, listen, we'll be more than happy to share whatever information we have with you, but just realize it's all available out there anyway.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, yeah,
just
yeah.
go to your chat GPT or your Claude and ask a question, and you're gonna get all the information you ever wanted in your life.
Yep. Yeah, there's a
So
catch-22 with that though. I mean, everybody's so quick to abdicate and delegate their thinking. There is something to be said that you can have an expert tool, but that doesn't mean you know how to use it expertly. And there are nuanced insights that you got to be careful about. Like they typically, anytime any money you spend on tax planning or a tax advisor basically pays for itself, which is like and from my understanding, the best team that you, or at least a basic team that everyone would want to have would be a CPA, a bookkeeper, a lawyer, a private equity person, and you want to try to meet with them at least twice a year as a group. Is that something that you agree? Is there no, like you mentioned, digital assets? Does that require a different specialist? Is that because it like you said, everything's changed so much. I think it's at least in the United States, it was like the tax code was something like 10,000 pages. Like, how are you supposed to realistically stay on top of that? That's just such nonsense. People talk about
nobody can.
contradictions in the Bible. Like people talk about
Yeah.
contradictions in the Bible, and that's whatever that is. That's like 800 pages or something. Meanwhile, you got 10,000 pages of tax code, and you tell it like, come on, what are we doing?
No, but no one person. That's so that leads back to my original statement, which simply says no one person has all the answers to all the questions. You can't do it. What does it say? It takes a
Something like,
community to raise somebody.
yeah.
It takes a team to really take care of most financial questions nowadays, or at least most financial circumstances. So if you're taught, and so nobody can disagree with what you just said, by the way, because what you just as it pertains specifically to business owners, especially small businessmen, I mean, you need that team and more in order to make sure that you're keeping everything as current, as up to date, and as on point as possible.
Mhm.
Because so many things change. Tax laws change, the markets change, the global economy changes, your family situation changes. I mean,
Mhm.
so many things change. You have to constantly keep things updated, and you really need a super high quality and experienced team. So I'm often fond of thinking about, wisdom. Where does wisdom come from? Time in the barrel. You get time in the barrel, right? From experience, only over time. And that's the definition of the phrase time in the barrel. So I look for people who are really experienced. I mean, I've got 48 years of experience, but that doesn't mean somebody with 25 years of experience
Right.
out there is not doing also a great job for somebody. But 3 or 4 years of experience, that person has not seen enough yet. That person has not seen up markets and down markets and enough tax law changes and family changes and how to handle and help families who are going through transitions of various different types,
Mhm.
whether it's death or birth or marriage or divorce or selling a business or starting a business, all the various different things that are involved. So it takes a community to raise a child. It takes a team
Yeah.
to take care
Yep.
of business owners' needs.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, and I mean, it's like if you had a giant pile of watermelon. I learned this the first time I helped the company do over $1 million. It really surprised me how money changes people. Or because for me, where I grew up, I felt like we won the Super Bowl. Like we've got championship team. It's a Super Bowl. Let's go. But what I recognized after the fact, hindsight's always 2020, is there are people that figure out and learn how to create the value and how to make the money. And then there's a lot of people that are really close to that, but they don't know how to do that. And so it becomes sort of like, I don't want to say crabs in a bucket, but they're fighting over what exists. They can't see that there's more to go get. So for example, this team, I was really shocked that after we did 1.6 million under 8 months, over $3 million, including back end sales. And then all of a sudden people started getting pushed out of the company and people were eating their commissions. The CFO, her brother was diagnosed and was going through chemo, and he was moving in with her, and she was supposed to get 25 grand or something like that. And she got pushed out by the COO. And then I found out later that he ended up eating her commission and she didn't get any of it. Not a dime. They tried to do that to me. I still got paid. I made sure I got paid, but they tried to do that to me. And I realized like, that was just so weird for me, because it was like, this is like, we just need to keep the team winning. And so if you had a giant pile of watermelons, this is what I describe it. If you put, if I dropped off 1,000 watermelons on your yard, it's going to take some effort to protect it. Like in the beginning, it would be fine. They'll just be there. But after a while, first, there's just the natural rot, which you could consider just the government printing money and inflation and debasing of the currency if you just have money in a bank account. But then also there's all the rats, the mice, all of them are going to come. People are going to walk by, go, you've got so much. Why can't I have some? They're going to want to pick it up off your lawn. Like it's the same sort of thing. When you accumulate a lot of funds, I always say, I want the money. I don't want the fame, because I just don't want the attention, the fame. I want like a big boring wall around my property. I want it to be Garden of Eden inside, but from the outside, just nothing going on here. Just real boring, nothing to see, nothing to do. Can you speak to that at all? Like, what are some of the challenges these people face? Because as it gets up, I mean, it's very complicated. You got family, you've got government, you get on people's radars. Can you speak to that at all?
Well, are we speaking specifically to the retirement challenges that individuals are going to face? Or are we speaking to, let's just say, general business challenges?
Well, I say both, because if you can, I mean, for me, I've got a 3 to 5 year plan to retire, but it's mostly getting my income or my cost of living down to zero through having a farmstead, solar, all that. But at the same time, I know my parents are retired and they've got, they've got money, and it's like, how do you keep that safe? There's all sorts of 101, and maybe that's why you need a team.
Well, let's back into that. Maybe let's throw it in reverse, and we'll back into this a little bit. So let's start by saying, look, even business owners think about retiring someday, right?
Yeah.
Now, some of them, and the thing to think about is retirement means different things to different people.
Right.
To some people, retirement simply means I'm going to sell this big business and go start a little, and I'm going to just work in my little business, or I'm going to start a business for my family, or I'm going to be philanthropically inclined and volunteer my time. So, retirement means different things to different people. Some people want to retire at 62. Some people want to retire at 72. Some people want to retire at 80. So you have to first figure out what you're working with, right? What are the variables that I'm working with? And time and age are always one of them. Business owners really have a unique challenge, because they not only have to address and balance their personal and family retirement needs, they have to figure out, what are they going to do with the business, right? Are they going to have a strategic sale to an outside buyer? Are they going to transition ownership to employees? Or are they going to, in some way, shape, or form, gift or sell it to family members? And the challenging thing, we're also certified exit planning advisors. So the challenging thing that the statistics show about business owners is that, in general, it takes about 3 to 5 years to maximize the value, prepare a business for sale, market it, and actually conduct a transaction. It's like a 3.
Yeah, and most won't sell. Yeah, yeah.
80% of them won't sell.
Yep.
Isn't that something? That's the statistic. 80% of them won't sell for a variety of good reasons. The most common one is, the business is not really worth what they thought it was. Yep. It's their baby, it's their child. They grew it and they think it's, oftentimes worth much more than what the market will dictate that it's worth. Yeah. So that's one thing. The second time is, you do such a great job during that 3 to 5 year period of preparing it for sale, right? Making sure that all the pieces of the puzzle fit the right way, so it's an extremely attractive entity, that oftentimes they look at it and go, you know what, this is so much better than it was 3 or 5 years ago. I don't want to sell it now.
That's right.
I'm not interested in selling it now. I'm going to keep this and run it for a few more years.
Exactly. I know people that did that. They prepared it to sell, which means they got out of the day to day, and then they're like, I don't need to sell it now. I just
Yeah, it runs by itself. I'll clip coupons. It's great. So that's another reason. And then some other reason they prepare it so well that all of a sudden the family members become much more interested. The children or grandchildren are much more interested than they were before because they see the lifestyle that dad or grandpa or grandma has at this point in time, and they say, "Wow, I could go on vacation for 3 or 4 months a year too, and I could run that business." So there's so many different reasons why they do or don't sell, but it's an interesting observation that once they go through the process of preparing it for sale and coordinating, and this is where the science and magic come together, okay? It's the effective coordination of the personal and business finances and legal
Mm,
affairs. And
that's
how do we arrange them in such a manner that we maximize our sale value, keep the government out of our pocket for taxes as much as possible, and have an effective transfer to the new owners. How do we do that? And that's as much science as it is magic or art. Let's call it science and art. That's where the two converge. So business owners have that extra challenge. They're balancing both their personal and business financial and legal affairs, right? Whereas, a corporate employee or a professional or just mom and pop people like my family, where and I am, where I just consider myself mom and pop, right? We have a specific challenge, and it's one specific challenge, which simply is how do we create as much value that falls to the bottom line for ourselves and our family as much as possible? How do we create that value? How do we drive more money to the bottom line for us? Because when we do that, we put a floor under our income that
Mhm.
we look at the three buckets, right? We look at our absolute required income, we look at our lifestyle income, and we look at our future income and growth, right? Once we start filling those three buckets up and we've got that floor under our absolute necessary income, our required income, everything else becomes so much easier
Yep.
because we've removed all the pressure. The
Yeah. Yeah. The gap. That's why I talk about my zero cost living. I'm like, people don't, I feel like it's where education took people out behind. I feel like it's where education's really failed people, that nobody gets taught in school. Hey, if you learn to run a small business, you have something you can trade at any time. And if you own a piece of land and you just get a small setup, it doesn't need to be complicated. You don't need to go wild, but you just get a simple setup. All of a sudden, like we look at what happened with COVID, all these tent cities are up now because people had no, like, I feel like I'm 43 now at the time of this recording. And if somebody told me that when I was 19, I would be so much further along and so much better off, but they don't tell you that, and no one's, and it's just, I just like, what is school for at this point? I've got kids now.
there are no courses for that in school. There are none.
Yeah. Well, what does it say? No one's going to give you the education you need to overthrow them, right? Or to be independent of them. And so that's just this weird. I don't know if we want to go down that road, but it's really important whether you're planning to retire or not that you figure out how do you get out of the rat race? How do you unplug? What do you need to do to have some semblance of control in your life? I saw somebody make a comment on a video because the guy was talking about how everything ends up back at the bank. That, hey, I trade my life energy for some money that comes from the bank, and then I pay my bills and they send the money back to the bank. And he's like, I'm just like, why didn't we just leave it at the bank to begin with? Like his whole thing is I thought I had a business, but I'm really just employed by the bank at this point. Like we all work for the bankers. And that's where you got to figure out how to detach that chain and actually have some sovereignty. And you got to get out of this hand to mouth cycle. And I love what you mentioned about the business owner, because I always felt business was great because what I say it differently. Like most people try to manage their own finances. When you have a business, you have to manage your own finances, the business's finances, and oftentimes your staff, because they're always going to, not always, but they're going to hit you up, go, hey, I had this emergency. Hey, I need an advance. Now you got to get involved in their finances to a certain extent. So I think it's just a really good vehicle for learning some of those life skills. What are some of the biggest mistakes that you see people making?
That's a great question. Wow. So, not having that guaranteed floor of income. And again, we're just talking about retirement issues in general, whether they are business owners or whether they are individuals that had a corporate career or a professional career. Do they have they covered their monthly expenses in retirement? Do they have that floor where they know that regardless of what the market does, regardless of what the economy does,
Yep.
regardless of how they change the tax flows, this is going to cover my monthly nut all the
Yep.
time. So that's really a big one. Does my plan account for a 30-year retirement? Because think about it now, right? they say, in fact, we just put two phenomenal essays up on Substack. 4,100 and something days, which is basically the first 12 years of retirement for most people if they retire at age 62, right? Which is early retirement in the US for Social Security. You've got just over 4,000 days that you can expect of a healthy retirement. What happens after that? Most people are not as healthy when they're 75 as they were when they're 62.
Yep.
So have you planned for that? Have you made provisions in your financial plan, your finances and retirement to account for that?
Hmm.
Most people do not. They just say, we're going to need X amount of dollars a year for retirement. I'm going to count 25, 30 years, and here's what I've got. Boom, I'm done. It
Yep.
doesn't work that way.
Yep.
The cost of medical care rises so much quicker than the general cost of living.
Yep.
And have I designed separate strategies for those three buckets? So I have an investment strategy for the guaranteed bucket or floor bucket. I have a separate strategy for a lifestyle bucket. And we have a separate strategy for a growth bucket for the future bucket.
Hmm.
Have you done that? Has an advisor helped you with that? Have they run those projections? Another one is, have I calculated the cost and the value of delaying retirement to age 70 as opposed to
Delaying retirement. Yeah. Okay.
at age 70 as opposed to early retirement at 62. Now, I am fully aware of the fact, by the way, that the younger generation to us, I'm part of the beta wave of the baby boom generation. But I'm totally aware of the fact that younger generations think about work and retirement differently than we did in the baby boom generation. They
Mm.
have different thoughts and ideas about when they want to retire and what kind of retirement they want to have compared to what we did. I mean, I was born in a poor family. It's not a sad story, but born into a relatively poor family in Newark, New Jersey. My mom was a waitress. My dad was an auto mechanic.
Hmm.
My first year out of college, I made more in salary than both of my parents did together, more than they ever made
Yep.
in a year in my first year, and I only made $24,000.
Yeah. Yep. And that used to be a
So
lot of money.
it used to be a lot of money. It's exactly
Yeah,
right.
it's Saturday night.
So yeah, exactly right. Yeah. So people think differently about that. But have they planned? Have they arranged their future financial planning? Have they done the projections to account for that, for those significant increases in cost? You know, and by the way, one thing that is sorely missed in a lot of retirement plans nowadays, have you planned for your surviving spouse?
Mm.
If you should
Mm.
predecease your spouse at a somewhat early age, has there been the appropriate thought process to think about how your spouse is going to survive? Whether that
Mhm.
spouse is male or female is kind of relevant. And
Mhm.
then with regard to that spouse, this is a big one. Have both families. So in the US, we have Social Security. I know in Canada, it's something slightly different than that. But have you done the projections and the calculations to what is the optimal claiming strategy? When
Mhm.
is the best time to claim for you and your spouse? And have you done the analysis, has an advisor done an analysis to show you how to keep as much of those dollars in your pocket as possible? Because as your income changes, the taxability of those Social Security benefits change. And
Mhm.
you need to be able to forecast what that is so you can stage and sequence your income in retirement. So
Mm.
Uncle Sam doesn't take a huge portion of that before you get your hands on it.
Yeah, I don't know if it's come across yet. I have a bit of I mean, I want to give back and I want to take care of other people, but at the same time, in Canada, if you're in a top income earning bracket, federal income tax is, I think it's 36%. Provincial income tax is 16%, and then everything you buy has a 15% sales tax on it. So you're getting taxed like 51% on your income. And then with the 49% that you get left, everything you buy at point of sale has a 15% tax on it. I mean, it's just ridiculous at this point. And now what they've done is, because of this, and because, in my opinion, I should say allegedly here, allegedly the politicians have pilfered the pension plan profits and the money so much that they got to figure out how to cover their tracks. And so the medically assisted intentional death program called MAID is being rolled out and expanded at scale. They're actually even including children now into it. There's been a lot of outcries that it's being not used ethically. And I actually have a relative. Actually, my parents know 4 people that have fallen victim to this plan. My aunt was one of them. And part of it was because she couldn't afford the cost of living in retirement. She was outliving her retirement and didn't want to be a burden to her kids and didn't even want to ask. So nobody even really knew. I mean, there's medical issues too, like, oh, I have aches and pains, but whatever. Take some turmeric and some Tylenol. Like, I got aches. I'm not that age, but what does it say? Money solves all problems. A lack of money creates. Money doesn't solve everything, but it solves that. And that would have been a scenario. And so you can either understand, what is it saying? You can either understand history, or you can trust the government. You can't do both. You can't do both. And so it comes back to what I was saying before. You really have to have a plan. If you don't have a plan, don't expect somebody else to have a plan for you. And
Well, they do have one for you, but you're not going to want it.
yeah, you're not going to want it. You're not going to like it. You're not going to want it. Right now, Canada is liquidating the youth to pay for their own retirement. And that's why so many of the younger working age folks are going out west, and why right now there's supposed to be a vote in October for Alberta to separate from Canada. And some of the Western provinces want to go because people are just fed up with it. So this is the stuff we're talking about today, is the stuff that, plan to fail. Was it fail to plan to fail? And so this is really where it comes into, like, what you're talking about, having the team, having these conversations, sitting down with your families. What are people like? Can you talk about the experience? Like someone that's maybe afraid, like, oh, I'm nervous to have a sit down and share my finances. I got to tell people how broke I am, or, like whatever that is. There's all sorts of insecurities and stuff that come along with it. Or some relatives don't, my wife doesn't want to have the sit down, or we need to talk because grandparents are involved and there's family estates. And some of this can be really complicated. Can you talk about that? What are some of the challenges that people typically have to address in getting everybody to the table?
Well, you've probably heard this before from other people in my industry. People spend more time planning their vacations than they do planning their finances in many cases.
Yeah.
And that goes specifically to their retirement plans. So, and to your comment earlier, it's an interesting saying. I heard it years ago. Money in and of itself doesn't make you happy, but lack of it can make you miserable.
Yeah. Yep. Oh yeah.
Well, it's the same way when you make money. You can make money, but it's not how much you make, it's how much you get to keep.
Yeah.
And if you don't do the planning, you get to keep less
Yeah.
because you were uninformed or ill-advised or whatever the case may be. You need to have a plan to optimize your income in retirement. And this is a fact. What gets you to retirement is not the same plan that's going to get you through retirement. How you handle that, it's profound. How you handle your financial affairs up to the 5 years before retirement, and I call that 5 years the real critical window. That's the sweet spot. You get to do so many great things to maximize your retirement income during your retirement years in those 5 years prior to it. And every year that goes by, you give up a year of planning ability. But what gets you to retirement won't get you through retirement, because accumulation is totally different than the decumulation period. And that's what retirement is all about. And if you structure those 3 buckets properly that we chatted about, you get to reduce the effect of the decumulation period. But you're going to spend more in retirement than you think you're going to spend.
Right.
Because
Of course.
the cost of living are just going to keep going up. It's not going to go down.
Yeah. I forget, there was a king, they called him Copper Nose something. And he got the name because this is something that just repeats throughout history. I forget who it was. It was like Copper Nose Henry or something like that. And it was because there was a king, and how do we fund these wars? And used to be people paid with silver. And then they started putting like a copper slug inside the coin so they could use less silver. It was a way they couldn't print money, but they could falsify it. They started calling them Copper Nose because the coins would rub when they were in people's pockets, and the king's nose would turn copper because it would rub off and on the outside. And so that was, this has been going on and on and on and on and on and on. Yeah, forever. This is where you need to invest, as Warren Buffett says, into productive assets. Raw land is a productive asset. You can have a big pile of gold, but it doesn't do anything for you. It just sits there, and it might hold its value, sort of. But there was somebody else that I forget where I heard it, but he said that land, gold, and collectibles are a good way to store value outside of a bank, because if the barbarians are at the gate, you throw your gold coins in a sack, you take your paintings off the wall and roll them up, and off you go on your horse. And then when things have settled, you can usually come back. If you truly owned the land, you can usually get the paperwork you need to make your case and claim and get it back, and then you put your paintings back up on the wall and you took your gold with you. And these days, how do you do? You got your bank account, similar things. But to your point, the governments are going to continue printing money every 100 or something years, 120 years, I guess, around. The world reserve currency seems to change. It used to be the Dutch, and then it was the British. We're currently at like 130 years now of the United States dollar. Things change. And so you got to make sure that you're making smart decisions. And I think that this is really important. Can you break down the purpose? So you talked about the required income. It's just like your basic cost of living. Like, we used to call that roof and ramen when I first got into the business. My buddy and I, we would be like, hey, I got roof and ramen. Like, our business is good. Now it's just a game. So you got your roof and ramen. I got the place to sleep. I got food in my belly. I'm safe and dry. Then you got your lifestyle income, and you said future growth income. Can you describe, can you break those down a little bit more for us?
Well, you did a good job with the required income, right? Those are your necessities of life. You need a roof over your head, food on the table. Nowadays, we can't live without electricity. Practically, it's almost impossible, because almost everything we use nowadays is powered by some form of electricity, whether you're getting it from the sun or from wind or from your local municipality, whatever the case may be, or a diesel generator in your backyard. But most things require some type of power nowadays. So, once you've provided that, once you know that no matter what happens, you're going to be able to feed your family, they're going to be able to bathe, you're going to be able to take them where they need to go in order to live the lifestyle that you become accustomed to. But then there's the lifestyle things. Look, most people don't want to live less than they did 5 years ago. Most people like to either maintain their lifestyle or increase their lifestyle. And when in retirement, Daryl, you think about it. In retirement, theoretically, you'll have more time. I could point out clients of ours that are retirees that are as busy, if not busier, in retirement than when they were working. But theoretically, you have more time. So maybe you want to do more things. You want to travel. You want to be able to endow your family with things that you were not privy to when you were younger. So those are the lifestyle assets, right? And then there are the growth and the future type assets, which is, we've already talked about, things are going to cost more money. And one of the biggest things on everybody's list nowadays, expense list on their income and expense statement, is medical expenses. Medical expenses increase at such a larger rate than regular costs and than all the other costs of living. So we have to account for that. And the number is 8 years. People live 8 years longer today than they did in the 70s. Think about that.
That's good.
Lifespan is increased by 8 years.
Yep.
So when we talk to our clients, if you're going to take early retirement at 62, you got to plan for a 35-year retirement. Well, guess what? That 35-year retirement is longer than many people's career, longer than their working career. So, we say 30 years is really a reasonable number to plan for. So, will your finances, can you project them to last 30 years under various different scenarios? And two of the biggest risks to retirement that we see nowadays, Daryl, and I'm sure you've heard this before, is sequence of returns risk, right? When do we get the returns? When do we get the down cycles? Because every market cycle, if we look at markets right now, market cycles are about 5.4 years, right? In a 5.4 year period, a market will go up, it'll come down, and it'll start back up right to kind of where it started, okay? So that's a full market cycle. So if we look at that, in that 5.4 years, there will be 6 quarters, 18 months in general, when markets will be down. We don't know when they're going to be. We can't predict them because nobody can predict what happens in the markets, right? But history has shown us, statistics show us, that 5-point-year market cycle, 18 months of that 5.4 years, 6 quarters, markets will be down. Now, here's the challenge. So here's retiree A. Let's just use you and I. Let's use you and I.
Yep.
Let's say you and I retire, we're the same age and we retire at the same time and we have the same, let's pick a number. It's $10 million, okay? We're each worth $10 million at retirement. In your retirement cycle, the market for the first 5 years goes up every year, a reasonable rate. Let's say it goes up 6 to 8% a year for 5 years.
I'm
And
celebrating.
then
I'm buying a
and
yacht. I'm expanding my
dude,
lifestyle.
you're euphoric, man. You're having a great time. In my cycle, the market goes down for the first 5 years, right? Long term, who's going to have a more
We're going to do
prosperous
so much
retirement?
because you're starting it off with discipline and frugality and awareness. Whereas I am like nothing fails like success, as they say. So, I'm talking about ourselves. After helping that one client do $3 million, I thought I had a golden touch, for the next 18 months, funny enough, next 18 months, I guess it's a down cycle, but for 18 months, I thought I had a golden touch because that worked. And then the next thing worked. And I'm like, I know what I'm doing. I have cracked the code. Yeah, right.
Well, let's say that. Let's. How about if we both spent the same amount of money?
Yep. Yeah, but I
Okay,
think
but
psychologically, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but yeah.
oh, that's all right. But if we started with the same amount of money, 10 million, and we both spent the same amount of money every year for the first 5 years, right? And your portfolio went up in the first 5 years, and mine went down in the first 5 years. 20 years from now, who's going to have more money? You are. Why? Because early on, your portfolio went up.
Grew fat. Yeah, got it.
Mine went down.
Right. Okay.
So long term, you're going to have a much larger pot to draw from than I'm going to have.
Got it. Yes.
That's the
Sure.
sequence of returns. If we're drawing the same amount of money and yours goes up and mine goes down early on. Now, if my portfolio goes down 20 years from now, will it matter as much? No, because I will have gotten all those years of growth in the beginning.
Right. Right.
So that sequence of returns is really critical, right? How do we account for sequence of returns? And then the other risk, and this is a new risk too that people have just started to qualify and quantify, sequence of inflation. Look where we are now. If inflation rises early in retirement, is it more or less devastating than if it rises later in retirement? It's way more devastating because the prices rose much earlier.
Well, and then you get into Forex questions like what currency do you want to hold your funds in? Because that's a big, just because you live in a country doesn't mean you have to only hold that country's dollar, which is
That's a fact.
Yeah, that's a fact. And there's some countries out there that are very stable. I think the Swiss franc is probably the most stable, most safe. Singapore's got a great, strong currency as well. I feel like they are so well positioned to walk through the future with China and the United States. The culture is so Chinese, but it's also very westernized. Yeah. That's why when we talked at the beginning, you need a team. You work so hard to make your money.
What got you to here is not going to get you to there.
Yeah. Mark, where do you see things happening over the next 5 years or even 10 years? Your career, you look at life through a periscope. What do you see happening? What are the things that you're paying attention to?
Well, you don't need to be a genius to look around us today and look at the news and see what's happening in the technology world. Okay. They're calling it what the next industrial revolution, right? I believe that in my soul is absolutely correct. There has been a huge rotation in value with regard to companies and current and future technologies. So that you can't do it all yourself. Okay. I've been doing this for 48 years. It's the only thing I've ever done. I cannot do it all myself. We have to have a team. We have to have a network of trusted people who have wisdom through experience and time in the barrel. You have to have it. Does not mean there are brilliant people who are early in their career in our industry and many industries and professions. There are always brilliant people, but they haven't experienced everything yet. They don't have that experiential base to draw upon and say, here are the things that could happen. Can you ask ChatGPT? Can you ask Claude? Can you ask Perplexity? What are the various different things that can happen? Yes, and you'll get information. Having information is one thing. Knowing what to do with it, how to apply it in your specific circumstances.
And the time to apply it as well is the other thing that people don't take into consideration. Like, how many things do people know what needs to be done, but they just don't get it done? And at that point, you just need to pay some money and have it done. And that's where you don't want to cheap out on that either. to a certain extent because you might know what needs to be done. Great example. I talked about my tilapia pond. I
Yeah.
had a guy with a backhoe scheduled to come. They had a mechanical breakdown. My wife and father-in-law knew I really wanted it. They found two guys with shovels willing to come and do it. And we got it done, but it wasn't done. And it's fine. It's not a big deal, but it wasn't done perfectly as how I'd drawn and designed it. And that's because they were just sort of left to be, you know what I mean? Like, hey, here's the drawings, here's the design, here's what it should look like, away you go. But they weren't that. They were laborers. You know what I mean? Like, you can hire someone and it's very simple, straightforward to you, but it may not be to other people. And you really need to make sure people know what they're doing. That's an important part as well.
But Daryl, let's look at you. Let's look at you for a second. Look at all that you've done. Yeah, I love that. Look at all that you've done, right, in your career, in your profession. Look at the companies that you've driven. You've driven true and meaningful value to their bottom line because you had the experience, you had the wisdom, and that's what you're doing. You are bringing wisdom to business owners nowadays, and you're helping them transform their businesses, whether it's for sale or improvement or expansion, whatever the case may be. You're adding to their bottom line. You couldn't do that if you didn't have the experience and the wisdom to do it. You could not do it.
100%, 100%, 100%. Mark, this has been such a good call. I've got a couple pages of notes. I do want to be respectful of your time. Is there anything I haven't asked you that I should have asked you?
You really are too good. I think you've covered so many different things. I appreciate your time. It's been an honor to spend this time on here with you today. I don't normally get to have really wonderful, frank conversations like we did and talk about a variety of different issues, government and taxes and investments and business and family. It was great, man. I really appreciated it. Thanks. It was an honor.
Of course. And if people want to learn more, if they want to reach out, if they want to get in touch, if they want to have a sit down with you or some of your team and have them take a look at what they're doing, what are some of the best ways for them to get in touch?
Sure. An easy way, they could call us, and our toll-free number is 888-892-9882. They could visit us on our website, www.retirementsuite.com. That's retirement, SUITE.com, retirementsuite.com. Or, if they're so inclined, they could simply email us too, info@retirementsuite.com. We have or they could visit us on Facebook and LinkedIn and Substack. We show up on most of the social medias, but we'd love the opportunity if somebody is interested in exploring whether or not they can improve their family situation. We can work collaboratively with you and any of your business clients that are looking for strategies to exit a business in the future. We're more than happy to help. So
that you did. That number was 888-892-9882.
Yep.
888-892-9882. You can also send an email to info@retirementsuite.com. And if you go to retirementsuite.com, they actually have a retirement scorecard quiz that you can take. It's a quick test that you can take to just kind of point you in the right direction on where you're leaking the most money. Fail to plan to fail. So I highly recommend, whether it's with Mark or somebody else, that if you're listening to this, for whatever reason, it's serendipitous, that this is something you should probably put some time into. And, your life, your future, is worth it. So make the investment in yourself. Mark, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an honor and a pleasure. Thank you so much. Knowing you have your own direct reports, your own clients. Thank you for coming and sharing with all of us so we can all hopefully retire better.
Thanks for having us on, Daryl. It's been an honor. Thank you.